Hey friends, what's happening? A few days ago, I posted a question. How many kilometers do you think I have traveled in the last 4 months? On May 19th, I flew from Shanghai, layover in Doha on my way to Nice because I have this very strange job where every few months I end up being the VIP manager of the after party for Formula One. It's called Amber Lounge. For a few days, I get to pretend I enjoy nightclubs. And it's actually a real blast, and I get to help rich people spend way too much money on a super lavish, insane party. I got to hire a good buddy of mine, my buddy Curtis Fowley, and he came and helped, and I'm so glad he did because at the time I was still very sick with Lyme disease. He saved my ass, and my whole crew at Amber Lounge was super understanding, and they were wonderful, and we powered through a very crazy Monaco Formula One, and it was rad. From there, once that was done, I hopped on a train and I went to Milan. And I went there because one of my favorite people, Princess Pola from Poland, lives there with her amazing husband David. And the two of them had me in their home, showed me around. They knew I was sick. They wanted to try and help. David gave me all kinds of medicine. Pola took me around in the rain looking for good doctors. And I will never forget that. Once I left, I flew to Paris. I had a whole plan in Paris. I wanted to see a bunch of people. Instead, I saw nobody. Oh, I did see Jade and Stefan and their little son, Elon. I stayed with them, and it was nice just catching up. I know Stefan from back in the day in South Africa, also where I met Pola. And from there, I hopped on a train, and I quickly stopped in Copenhagen just to look around, and then went to Gothenburg, Sweden. And I was there to see my friend Victoria, my old roommate from Thailand. Victoria is one of my favorite humans on the planet. This woman is so funny, such a big heart. Some of my best memories are dancing with this wonderful person. We spent a couple days bombing around in Gothenburg. She showed me around, it was cool. And then from there, I hopped on another train and I went all the way to Oslo, Norway. But I wasn't just there to explore, I was there for a wedding. And my old friend Arturo, he showed up. And we rented a car and we drove down along the coast to the city called, I think, Farsund. And we were there for a wedding of my friend Govi, who had an incredible, beautiful wedding. And also driving through Norway was beautiful. And the thing I noticed is that it really reminded me of Quebec. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, that's where I was born. And I would always drive to my cottage. And that drive felt so similar to this drive. It's the same topography, same trees, same rocks, same feel. So that was really cool. And then from there, we drove back to Oslo, and then I hopped on a plane and I flew to Dublin. I had always wanted to go to Ireland because I'm half Irish. So I figured, why not? So I convinced my buddy Tom, who lives in Scotland, who also used to be my roommate. So it was great to see Tom again. He's such a great guy. And we rented a car. Little tricky because it's on the other side of the road, steering wheel's in the passenger seat for us North Americans. We just drove around, we spent a couple days in Dublin, drove to Galway and back. The thing I noticed about Ireland was it's so green. The level of green is incredible. It's just, you're driving through these windy roads and the trees are all kind of growing over. It's so cool. I got to see the cliffs of Moher, which was just stunning. It was wonderful. I played ukulele for cows. I hung out with one of my favorite people, Tom. You're gonna hear me use that phrase a lot because that's what this trip was. This trip was me seeing my favorite people. So then we went back to Dublin and I hopped on a plane and I flew myself to Vancouver. One of the cool things I got to do when I was in Vancouver is I got to shoot this realty ad. I got to pretend to be the husband who had just purchased a new home worth $27 million. So once I finished in Vancouver, I hopped on a plane and flew myself south to my favorite city in America,
Sandiego.
My good friend Curtis Fowley, he lives there and we just hung out. He's currently living his hot girl summer and just having a great time, sat in the sun in his beautiful home and just chilled. So after a week of San Diego, I flew to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. One thing I'll always say about Edmonton is it has some of the best people. So it's always great to go back and visit. And I was there for a good reason because my friend Janet was marrying Marek. And it was just super cool to be there for that. From there, I flew to Montreal to see my dad and hung out with him for a week. After that, I flew back to Sandiego because
it's the greatest city in the history of mankind.
And this was the turn in the story when my health started to get better and I noticed I was actually feeling better.
I'm back, baby!
I had enough energy I could work out again. So I started working out and I just felt mentally on point. Before I knew it, I was back on yet another plane, flew to Vancouver to shoot a Bank of America ad. Then I hopped on yet another plane and I flew to Honolulu to see some of my favorite people, Spencer and Lauren. Lauren and I met in Singapore forever ago. She's just rad. And so they took care of me, they let me stay at the house, and I just continued to get better. I enjoyed Hawaii air, I worked out, I sat in the sun, I played with their amazing dog, Honey, and I healed. I flew back to Vancouver, spent another week there, saw friends, and then hopped on a plane and flew to Montreal. I wanted to pick up my minivan and drive it from my cottage, which is 2 hours north of Montreal, all the way down the East Coast to my family condo, which is near West Palm Beach. It was a lot of driving, but I love highway driving. It was just me on the road. I slept in the van. I put a mattress in the back. Like, it was awesome. Got the van to the condo, flew back to Vancouver for one last time to shoot a water filtration unit, Santavia. And it's just me looking very hydrated. Shout out to those guys. Thank you so much for having me. And then I said goodbye.
I hate goodbyes!
And I proceeded to start one of the longest trips of my life. A 16-hour, 40-minute flight to Singapore.
I immediately regret this decision.
So I went out and fear bought a bunch of stuff on Amazon. I had this memory foam pillow for my butt. I had this face mask that would hook on to the headrest. I had this big blow-up pillow that I could put my hands in and put my head on. I even bought like a little hammock for my feet to sit in. Like, so ridiculous. I looked like an insane person. And thank God, because the second I got off that plane, I jumped into one of the craziest times of my life.
Tonight on The Bachelorette Canada.
No, not that.
So I was at yet another Amber Lounge. This time it was the Singapore Formula One.
And the Singapore Grand Prix is underway!
But I also took on something else as the host of Miss Universe Singapore. But it was a lot because I had to do the rehearsal, and then at nighttime I had to do Amber Lounge till 5 in the morning, and then back to do the dry run during the day, and then Miss Universe, and then go basically right into one more night until 6 in the morning. That experience was one of the craziest times of my life, but it was so great. I love that I get to do this weird job with Amber Lounge and Formula One and get to be the host of that party. I even got to do an interview on beIN Sports talking about the brand.
Who better to clue me in than VIP manager Kevin? Kevin, what exactly is Amber Lounge?
And then getting to do Miss Universe.
I literally just wrapped hosting Miss Universe Singapore 2024 here in beautiful Singapore, and I gotta say that was an incredible experience. What a weird life. Wow.
You know, I had a moment where I walked out there and the crowd was bigger than I expected, and I had that thing where you think, oh my God, they're gonna realize you don't know what you're doing. You're gonna mess this up. Everyone's gonna see you're a fake. It was cool because in that moment I said, no, you prepared for this. You're ready for this. You're okay. And I just put my head forward and pushed into the script, and it went great. There was some mistakes. Oh, fuck. But for the most part, it was really good. There was a pretty close Steve Harvey moment.
It was my mistake. It was on the card. Still a great night.
And with that, Steve was off.
When they handed me the results and I couldn't tell, I was like, wait a sec, I don't know what you're... I'm like waving over at the producer guy. I'm like, and like literally the two girls are standing there wondering who's winning, and I'm like, just a sec. But ultimately it went really well, and I'm so glad I got to do that. So big thank you to Corinne, big thank you to Jack and Belle, my Amber Lounge team, for being patient with me, doing 2 things at once. Thank you. It was such a cool experience. I'm so lucky. From there, once that was done, I finally took my last trip, hopped on a plane to Hangzhou. I spend the night in Hangzhou, hop on a train, and get myself to Shanghai, to where I'm sitting right now, in my home that I missed so very much. I spent 4 months living out of a suitcase, and all I wanted to do was sleep in that bed. Now, I wanted to make this video to just take a moment and thank all the wonderful people that were there for me during this. I'm thankful to have the support of all my friends and family around the world, that I have a healthy body that lets me travel. I have big plans for things I want to do next, and I'm really happy also to be back here for a little while. So with all that said, if you're still here and you want to know how much I actually traveled, let's pull up the numbers. So I went to 11 different countries in the last 4 months, and since May, I traveled almost 74,000 kilometers. That's wild. And that's just since May. If you want to go back further and look at the entire year, in the last 365 days, I have traveled over 114,000 kilometers. Now, to put that in perspective, the circumference of the globe itself is about 40,000 kilometers. I traveled not once, not twice, but almost 3 times around the world in the last year. And I think that's pretty cool. I honestly can't believe I did that. I am so grateful I get to have these adventures, and I can't wait for the next one. Anyways, if you guys are still here, that's the answer, 114,000 kilometers. Big love, my friends. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there. Take care, comb your hair.